Wow, this was harder than thought, harder than ever before. Sorry for the delay. I hope everything is working now. Again, I had some issues with the internet connection. So, I want to do a sprint today to just keep things a bit more time boxed. And I want to dive, whatever, into looking at some Git submodule stuff because I just had this idea while showering. I've dabbled around with Git submodules a bit already, here and there, always a bit more, a bit less. And I have something that I think where it could make sense for leveraging GenAI coding and working with Cursor and Windsurf. I'm not sure if I'll able to be touching both. I do want to get back into windsurf. I keep saying that. And Joe, so let's just see how it goes and bear with me if we got some hiccups. I still want to enjoy some music. I hope it's not too loud. It shouldn't be. If you want to reach out in the chat actually to let me know if you can hear the upcoming conversation with ChatGPT with the advanced voice mode, then please do so. Let me just close. There might be reverbs. Yeah, okay. Now I hear the reverb. I'm on my channel listening to the live stream, which has a delay. Still got this live stream game not completely figured out yet, as you might you're my witness basically. But let's just jump in. Just to kick things off, I felt like having a conversation. I did stage this to be full disclosure, but I want to go through it once more. I hope this is not too, that the volume is not too low, because maybe let's actually stop the music for this part and hope that I checked it. It was sometimes loud enough and sometimes it wasn't. Let's just try, right? So hey, I want to leverage Git submodules, and I wonder when I have a bigger, like the meta Git repo that has Git submodules, how would that materialize if I clone the bigger repo? How would the submodules materialize on my file system?
When you clone a repository that has Git submodules, by default, only the main repository's files and the submodule references are pulled. The submodules themselves won't be automatically populated in your file system. You'll need to initialize and update them using specific commands. To get the submodules, you'd typically run git submodule update -init -recursive. This command will pull in the submodules and place their contents into the appropriate directories as defined in your main repository. So, after running that command, your file system will reflect the structure of the submodules as intended.
Right. So, but eventually this means that once I, initialized and synchronized everything, that I have basically the nested Git structure on my file system as well. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Once you've initialized and updated the submodules, you'll have a nested Git structure. Each submodule acts as its own standalone Git repository within the parent repository. So you'll manage them independently, but within the context of the main project.
Awesome. The background or the context why I want to do this is that I want to give my coding agents in either Cursor or Windsurf access to sort of a nested structure. But sometimes it might be necessary to kind of tell Cursor or Windsurf to not look at a specific subdirectory slash submodule. Is that possible with some form of Git ignore file, like the equivalent for Cursor and Windsurf? Can you please do a web search on that?
To exclude specific submodules, you can edit your Git modules file and add ignore all under the submodule section. This tells Git to ignore changes in that submodule. If you're using
No, wait, wait,
Cursor or
wait.
Windsurf,
You're not understanding me correctly. I want to leverage. I think there's like a dot cursor ignore and dot codium ignore, something like that file. Please do a web search on that. that's where I want to manage what the coding agent is looking at and not.
To manage what Cursor and Windsurf's AI tools look at, you can indeed use .cursorignore and .windsurfignore files. These files work similarly to .gitignore, allowing you to specify which directories or files should be excluded from the AI's processing. So, if you don't want certain subdirectories or submodules to be analyzed by these tools, you can list them in these ignore files.
Perfect. Now I want to kick off an actual coding session. Can you please craft a prompt that contains me wanting to spin up a Quarto-based file structure just with some example files? That's like a that's like a thing. It should become a learning repository or learning repository for learning files in Quarto format. I want that to happen, and I want to create two different submodules, and I need a prompt for that, concise prompt.
Here's a concise prompt for your coding session. Spin up a Quarto-based file structure for a learning repository. Include example files. Create two different submodules for specific content areas within the repository. This should help set up your learning repository structure efficiently.
Perfect. So I actually didn't start the clock here. Let's aim for starting from now 30 minutes because I want to make this a sprint. And let's look at the output of our little conversation. And yeah, this is not a good prompt. I'm using O3 Mini. It's good for conversations. It's not good for well, maybe it's not a bad prompt. I shouldn't talk bad about um, O3 Mini. It has been fantastic for some stuff and not so good for other stuff. Obviously, coding, it's not meant for coding. Let's actually start off with a completely new project. And I will get into what what git ignore, what git submodules actually are and what I want them to leverage. What I want to try out basically. So let's just create a little scratchpad section here in my code repository or in my coding folders. And let's create one that's called repo A. Let's maybe make it repo 1, maybe 0, 1. And we have repo 02. And we have the main repo. Those are just toy names, obviously. Just want to test out some stuff. And we go into the main repo. And right, I'm just gonna do today and then maybe explain later because I think this will make sense to you later on. Maybe before or in the meantime, you have access to to the Miro board, and I just link you, or I just put a link here, or two links actually. I have one in the description of today's live stream. At least there should be, yeah, here. There should be the second link. And again, I'm well aware that no one might be watching, which is totally fine. I just want to have this on tape, basically. In the meantime, you might want to read up a little bit on Git submodules, which is cool. The link to the Miro board is in the description of today's live stream or of this live stream sprint. And with that, I just gonna go back in here, maybe bring some music back, see that it's not too loud. Let's go for volume level 5. I hope this is okay for you. Otherwise, reach out in the chat. I try to keep an eye on this. I just have one monitor today. So, back to cursor. That's our prompt. No, that's not our prompt because we copied something in the meantime. This is our prompt. So we go, please spin up a quarter-based file structure that mocks, simulates a demo learning repository. So files, folders, subfolders. Let's start out with, I hope this is big enough, by the way. Let's maybe increase this just for the start, maybe. Let's start out with actually populating the learning content with detailed or with concrete instructions on how to create a let's say meta repo called, let's put that in double quotes, meta repo, this one, the one we're in, that has 2 Git submodules. And repo, the first one is repo 01 and the second one is repo 02. Please go ahead and create the Quarto infra. First, including a script that renders index.quarto to HTML. Put that script in directory scripts, please. Let's see. Let's actually use Cloud Sonnet 3.5 for this. We're not using any MCP server stuff just yet because it's just infrastructure stuff, not really coding stuff. So let's just try this out. Oh, even a new cursor update? Possibly, I'm not sure. I find it a bit confusing that it is so regularly shown that there's seemingly a new update of cursor, but then when you look at the changelog, it seems like it looked yesterday, right? So I'm not sure if this is if there's actually a new version, but maybe they're pushing .x basically, so patch versions in the background. If you want to know which cursor version you are on, you just go to cursor in the menu up here, about cursor, and then you see that I'm on 0.46.48. Let's actually ask ChatGPT what's the most recent cursor version I'm on. Should update. Let's actually trigger the search here. And in the meantime, we are, maybe let's make it a little bit smaller. We're just setting up the infrastructure. It puts the learning content into content, which is fine. Probably in the later on, I would rename this stuff, but let's just vibe through it, through this part. How are we doing clockwise? Okay, not that bad. I think we'll just manage to get this done in like at least or at max 45 minutes. Let's just have a look on the chat. Nothing in here. So I can keep blazing through this thing I want to do. Cordo, by the way, maybe while it's doing its thing, let's bring some references over to today's live stream Miro board. It's a awesome framework for publishing, basically publishing anything: websites, dashboards, articles, presentation, books, knowledge repos. Oh, knowledge repos. I've never really explicitly took notice of this. I need to check this out actually. Where would I? Maybe in the guide. Because knowledge repo is, it's exactly what I want. I wonder what they mean in particular with this, but let's not get caught up in this. I highly recommend you checking Quarto out when it's, for me, it's like Markdown on steroids, if you will. So let's accept all, let's run the command to have our little render script. This is how you render stuff. Let me just find it, the Quarto command, and so Quarto render. I think if you just fire a Quarto render, it automatically renders in marked in HTML. Yeah, I think that's how it is. You can also render to docx, so Word documents, to PDFs, to slide.js presentations, and so on. So directory structure, everything is in place. Great, we successfully created a Quarto-based learning repository about submodules, blah, 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 adding learning content. So this is our directory structure. So we have content 01. Our first chapter basically is Git submodules. There's an index file. In this index file, we are referencing the two sub pages, if you will, which is, for one, creating submodules, modules QMD, which is this one, and managing submodules QMD. And now I just want to render this. I'm not sure if we have the permissions yet. Has it been? Yeah, it changed the change mod. I think that's what this this command is called, to set the permissions basically, right? So I can now go into into a terminal and fire a scripts render.sh, which should bring up this HTML page. This should have been, let me see. Where's the HTML site? Okay, here. That's the one I want. If we open this up in a browser, that's how this is laid out. And you see, I think right out of the box, you have lots of goodies. It's not just a Markdown document. It's already, you know, you can navigate. You have a table of contents on the right-hand side. It's just great for structuring your documentation, your thoughts basically, because it's mixing. It's also, that's the superpower, the basic superpower. You can mix regular text, like in Markdown, with code, and this code is actually executable, right? Just have a look maybe at the Get Started page. There you'll find an example of, sorry, not the Get Started page, maybe the guide, Markdown Basic using Python. You can see that by just putting Python code into this structure, into this code block format with some markup basically, it is then rendered. That's the rendered version. And you can look at the code. It's not the actual thing here, it's just an image, but you can see the code, collapse, decollapse it, and so on. Great, so now we have Markdown, our Markdown thing going. Now I want to basically, sorry for jumping around a bit. I wanna, let's close this. This was just for test purposes. I want to integrate those two other repos that I developed or created. I basically want to integrate them through Git submodules, right? And I think the first step, let me just go back and ask this in ask mode. So what's the first step when I now want to move towards using Git submodules? Would I initialize a Git repository and put it on GitHub first and then continue with the submodules, or do we do something locally first? Oh, okay. Microphone issue, I think. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. No, it's not working today. I think it has to do with my sound settings. So I'm back to typing. So what's the next step in moving towards or in setting up the Git submodule stuff? Should we initialize or init the Git repo of this project first, then push to GitHub, and then continue with Git submodule stuff, or do we already prepare something in this regard locally first before moving to GitHub? Initialize Git repo locally first, set up the submodules locally, push everything to GitHub. Okay. Yeah, so I definitely follow. I'm not sure because the other repos are not Git repos yet. So I think the model isn't aware that this could be the case, but let's just go ahead with a git init. Now our code here, sorry, our project is an actual Git repository. We do a git add, git commit, initial commit, and it's actually let's see. Please create a GitHub repo through the Git CLI, the GitHub CLI. Username is Yanko what the fuck. Repo is public and the name is how do we call this? Let's call it demo submodules. So I'm not sure if I'm already logged in. Let's just see. It has been created. Perfect. Awesome. This is my GitHub repo or my GitHub handle, and the submodule is sorry, the repo is there. Perfect. So now let's create the two repositories that will become our submodules. And that's where the model goes wrong. The two repos that are currently still regular folders, my file system, already exist on the same hierarchy level as the folder that makes up this project / repo. Take this into account, please. What do I do? Let's keep an eye on the shot clock. It's kind of fun to having to sprint through this a little bit more. I hope this makes the experience is okay for you as well. Still no one in the chat, so I'm talking to the void anyways. So yeah, so we would move into, let's actually see if I can, I should be able to do that obviously, right? So I'm going, sorry, cd. So now I'm Yanko, what the fuck, sorry, I didn't pay attention. We need to move into Scratchpad and into cd repo 01. We do a git init, git add, git commit. I should have created some files, obviously. Nothing to commit, actually. Yeah. Let's just put a README in there in each of the repositories.
Never asked you how your love life is going.
No. As you know, that was a done deal long ago.
Right. So it's the same README, obviously, as the one in the main repo, but we don't care about this now. So this one has been committed. Let's move back one and go into repo 2. All right, let's actually do the same thing. We create those two on GitHub as well. So this would be demo submodules, submodule 02. This has been created, should have been created, and we move back into the first one, do the same thing with 01. So now we basically done with this part. Now add them as submodules in our main module, main repo. So we going back to our, what is it called, main repo, cd main repo. Now we're in our project here again. And we run this command. Okay. What could be the reason for this? I don't know. Let's ask. Fix this, please. Git is blocking the file transfer protocol for security reason. Okay, interesting. I don't recall having to deal with that before. Interesting. So let's put that down in the learning actually. Never had to deal with file transport protocol and security stuff before. Please add this to the learning content. So it's choosing an existing file. Sorry, this was the site. This is the content. Chooses the creating submodules and adds a section about file, excuse me, file transfer stuff. File transport protocol. Interesting. Again, something learned. So now we should be able to run this. Submodule add. Yep. Perfect. And I'm assuming we do the exact same thing for the second repo. So actually, I can copy this. Yep. And also do this as a commit message. let's actually git remote. We probably don't have anything set yet, right? So we need to add the remote repo. It's this one, and we are running this. Let's actually do the same for the other two submodule repos. Obviously, it's a bit different. The name is a bit different. Yep, perfect. And for the second one as well. So back to our main repo. And we continue. So when you're ready to push to GitHub, git remote add origin, we have this. And now update submodule URLs in git modules. Where's git modules? Here. Okay, so this has probably has been created by setting, running the git submodule command, I'm assuming. Obviously, you need to be careful about this is like relative paths, right? So depending on your desired setup, this might be different. Update submodule URLs in git submodule. Yeah, okay, so then we need to run this. Obviously, I would, once I grokked it, I understood it, I would put this in shell scripts. And my username is, no, it's actually, I'm at this point. I'm at this stage. My username is Janko what the fuck. Please update the commands accordingly. Just lazy. What does the clock say? Okay, 30 minutes. We're probably then 35 minutes into it because I started the clock 5 minutes into the live stream. So which gives me 10 more minutes after the time runs out. The first shot clock runs out. Oh, interesting. It's actually updating it in the learning repo as well. Oh, nice. It's actually jumping the gun here with creating a second shell script. Setting up Git repositories for main repo. I already, let's see, git config. Was it git config that we needed to run? Wait. No, I'm a bit lost. Where is the, oh, all the messages. That's what I was looking for. Sorry, I'm a bit, this one. Okay, so yeah, git config. This is the step 5 basically. Just want to have that as a reference. Sorry, I'm old school in that. I work with little scratchpad files. But let's see what the new proposed, so git remote, git config, submodule repo. Yeah, it's exactly this. Preparing for GitHub. It should be this, right? The thing we need to run. Yep. And for the second one, I'm not trusting the shell script yet, so that's why I don't want to get caught up in troubleshooting that. And then we say git add git submodule. Oh, that's just for the commit. I got it. Yeah, sure, why not? Let's look at the submodules actually. Didn't change. Must be in the git config config only. Oh no, it does. It is. Sorry, I just overlooked it. There's the URL that we just set. Sure. Makes sense. It all makes sense. Then push all repositories to their respective remotes. Yeah. So let's do that. Git push u origin main. We need to do that for all the repos. Could have done that for the other ones before. Let's go move there again. So we did that, and next steps. Now that you've created a meta repository submodules, learn. Okay, so we created the script. Sure, make it executable, and let's just see how things look now on our repo. There should be, yeah, exactly. That's the cool thing. So now we have in our meta repo, in our bigger repo, which is demo submodules, we have a reference to the two submodules basically. And if we move there, oh, interesting. There seems to be something not quite right yet. Let's move back to the main one. Nothing changed really. Let's move to the repos for the submodules first. So they're definitely there, right? So it must be that something went wrong with the demo submodule. Oh yeah, sure. It's the completely wrong URL. So, okay, it's written a different way, which HTTPS. I'm not sure if that is a good idea because I'm liking to use SSH, but it should be fine for now. So this is the second one actually. So this should be fine. Fixed Git modules. Let's see how things are looking now. And voila, we can navigate to the submodules. And that's great. I don't have the time to tell you why this is great. I think in general, if you want to make it easier to reason about your code bases and how your modules, basically your Lego bricks, all fit together. I in particular want to do it for, and this is why I had the idea while showering. I basically want to keep adding to a meta body of knowledge and learning. Basically, I want to have my little learning compendium. I think that's what I called it yesterday. I couldn't think of the name when I talked to ChatGPT. A learning repository, learning compendium, whatever, right? And I probably want to have subfolders that are not just regular subfolders, but actual Git repos, so I can manage my little Lego bricks. And maybe at some point it just breaks down, because if you think of it that you have more than like 10 or 15 Lego bricks as a sub repo or sub module here, this might become unwieldy in a way, right? But I want to try this because, and that's the next thing. Let's have an eye on the, oh, I'm done already with my shot clock. Let's give us 10 more minutes. I want to do it that way because I basically want to try out if I can, you know, for doing GenAI coding stuff, it's great that you are able to reference files and folders in your session. And the model would have no chance of knowing about some other Lego brick in another repo if it were just a completely separated project, also on the file system. I want to see if by doing it that way with Git submodules, the model can actually, you know, look at whatever I wanted to look at, basically. Obviously, if I don't do anything related to git ignore, what is it? Probably cursor ignore or codium ignore. So the equivalent of, actually, I don't have that yet. So that's always something. Please create a git ignore file. There's an equivalent of to git ignore for telling cursor and I think also Windsurf to not look at specific files and folders. And obviously we need that, and probably we need to regularly update to say, hey, don't look at anything but just this additional. Git ignore for cursor to should not be indexed by cursor. Just want to make sure we are on the most recent documentation for that, or modus operandi, or however you want to call that. So when doing a web search, just checking the comments really quick, no one there. So git ignore, cursor ignore. Oh, 2 ways. Interesting. Cursor ignore. This is the primary ignore file that makes a best effort attempt in excluding files from both AI features and indexing. This is what you want to try when you're trying to prevent certain files from being accessed by cursor's AI features. Okay, that's definitely sounds like in the right ballpark. This file only controls which files are indexed for search and context features. Automatically inherits all patterns from git ignore. Ah, okay. So git ignore also plays a role. I've noticed that regarding .env files, because that's what I typically, or what you should have in your git ignore file, to never run the risk of committing your local .env file with all your credentials and, you know, sensitive environment variables. But yeah, makes sense. It's good. Sounds like the guys thought about this quite well, or quite substantially. The syntax in both files is identical. All right, so place cursor ignore file in the root directory. By default, inherits patterns from git ignore. Okay, you can override git ignore patterns and cursor ignore. Okay. Yes, please create a cursor ignore file that excludes repo 2. Actually, you can reference this. I should be able to reference. This is this glitch that I talked about yesterday. You have to go first into files and folders and then find the... Even then, it's not accessible. It's strange. Maybe it's... this might like destroy my entire thing. That this is in fact not a regular subdirectory, at least from the perspective of cursor, because it has probably some, I don't know, symbolic linking magic built in. It's also highlighted in a different color here. So let's see if that actually works. We'll find out. Also, please update the learning repo. I need to find a better word for that. Learning compendium, probably. Learning repo with a new file page. Yeah, let's do that. So we still have 5 minutes left. Probably already more than, because I didn't pay close attention to the previous timer. Let's see. So this one is the file. It's creating a new page. Let's actually try and see by creating how do I best test this? Let's do a hello world. You should not see this. This is for cursor, obviously, addressed to cursor. Let's see, we have the cursor new, cursor rules. Oh, interesting. So I never experimented with that before either. I just used the cursor rules through the settings. Good thing we also have that in here. So there's a new cursor specific files section or directory. Good. We update the Quoto YAML. It's important that this governs the entire table of content magic that you see. Yep, and what's left is in the index file we have a bit of updated stuff as well. Good. Yeah, I think this already happened. Sure, let's do a commit. Do a git push as well. Now I want to check if this thing is, where is it? Where's the indexing happening again? Here. So I delete the index by like, you know, deliberately. And now I want to see if it knows about repo2 at all and can access hello world. That's the entire, like, that's the Lackmus test. I think that's what it's called. Let's actually start a new conversation. Let's not reference anything. Let's check if it's really indeed a new conversation. Yep, it is. And I try to, let's do it like this. Also, this is weird. I cannot reference the code base from the agent drop down or interaction mode. And just ask, do we have a file that has hello world content? Look for file name. Look for file name. Let's actually do this. Look for file name or and content in that regard. That yeah, in that regard, that should be fine. Let's see if it's able to find it. It's grabbing the code base and it's looking for that. That's bad. That's not what we want. It might still be okay-ish, but that's like a crucial question. I need to find this out or investigate this in more detail. Index new folders by default. Configure ignored files. That's exactly what I wanna, you know, what I hoped for. cursor ignore files. Exclude repo 2 from cursor indexing and AI features. There seems to be a clash. Either this doesn't work, so that the agent is basically overriding the cursor ignore rules that are defined, or everything is fine. And how do I put this? Everything is fine in the sense that, let me go back to the settings here real quick, that this repo 2 currently is not convoluting our index. If that's the case, then I'm fine with that. What would be catastrophic is, think about adding like multiple, as I said before, multiple like submodules in here. Then also the context grows what cursor needs to index if it wants to index everything. And I'm sure it will manage somehow, because that's just the UX that cursor wants to provide. But I could well envision that the quality of your interactions then with the agent degrades, gets worse, because it's just the context is just filled already, or however they do RAG and vectorization or vector search in the backend is just like too scattered. But it's something I need to try out. I hope you got the gist of how we did it, how we did this entire, sorry, I need to find my repo here. What we did is to have a bigger repo, this is demo submodules, which has submodules referenced, other repos that are their own self-contained repo, and you can git commit and manage that just like any other repo. But the fact that they are basically bundled in this bigger repo, and if you clone that, then you would end up on your file system that you then also see in cursor with something like this, like where the repos are actually there, materialized. You have nested git project, a nested git project, if you will. And the cool thing, I think, and that's something I still need to figure out, that's where we left off, is this still manageable from the perspective of the coding agent and the way cursor indexes code bases? Because if it's too large, I can imagine that things start to fall apart and that your chats are just crap, basically. But maybe everything works just as intended, because I'm using cursor ignore files and cursor rule files, and so I just need to do some testing on that, I guess, and just try it out as always. And maybe that's a good way, or a good link back to the Miro board. This is all messy stuff. It's basically another chapter of the Hitch Coder's Guide to the GenAI Galaxy that we did today in a little sprint, not as sprinty as I hoped, but still not like 2 hours or 3 hours. So whoever is watching this or whatever I might do after the fact with this recording, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it provides some value for you, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Please like and subscribe. It greatly helps me in growing the channel, and it's highly appreciated. Peace.